can I take this time to?
Sure, yes, absolutely. I got it.
I think probably of all the meetings that the corridor has sponsored, and each one of them has been very, very significant as it applies to the wanting of development within that corridor area. I think this meeting here is probably the most important one of them all, because in my estimation, we have not perceived our history in the right context. And not doing it in the right context has caused for us to always be reactive as opposed to proactive. And the reason I state that is because of the document that was used to identify the historical significance of the corridor that they used to develop the when the Blue Lion Center came up for the renovation of it after the sale, which was questionable. We looked at the history of the Blue Lion Center and we found out that it didn't qualify as a historical building because too much of the architecture was changed when it was first renovated for the change. So what had to happen was that the district had to be identified as historical. And we went and we got a copy of that document. How many have read that document? Have you read it?
Yeah. District? District?
Yeah.
Historical district.
Okay. I was driving when a person was reading it to me. And as they were reading, it came and it said that, time may be a little bit off, but this is a variance. It said between 1890 and 1930. And it was triggered by the segregation law of 1913 that 4,000 blacks who had successful businesses in the 14th and Dodge area moved into that corridor. Okay, it was because of the segregation laws of 1913. Then it said from 1930 on up until the 40s and the 50s, an additional 6,000 African Americans from the South moved into the district. Does anybody recognize a change in that? 1890 to 1930, 4,000 blacks who had successful businesses in the 14th and Dodge area moved in. Between 1930 and 1945 or 50, an additional African Americans, 6,000 African Americans began to move into the area. Anybody recognize the difference in that? What's the difference? Somebody?
Black people didn't have businesses in the area.
Pardon?
Black people didn't have any businesses in the area.
No, that's not correct.
And the fact that it was at 14th and Dodge, which is downtown,
Right?
which is not here,
Right?
and the number of influx.
Why was the definition or the adjective to describe different? Why did it say between 1890 and 1930 blacks, and then it says between 1930 and up African Americans? Why is that?
They were referring to the people who were already here starting businesses.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Jews, right? The great
Well,
Jews.
see, that's where we made our second mistake, because we just called them Jews. The 4,000 successful were Hebrews.
And they were all black.
And at that time, and still, Hebrews were identified as being black. And because of segregation laws, they were the ones who came in and purchased all the property, because in 1913 also they had the tornado. That's why they gave them this area, because it was all destroyed. They came in and developed this area. And it wasn't up until probably the 50s and into the 60s that the African American blacks began to become involved in the economic flow. Before we were spending our money. We weren't getting the money. And the most significant piece of that is that when we finally got into the economic development and the community block grant types of situation, one of the reasons why there was no development is because there were no African Americans that really owned any significant property in this area, even up until that date. The ones that were in control, when they started identifying this as being a cultural district, the first thing they jumped to was jazz. And like you said, jazz was minuscule to what we were really talking about as far as to the cultural significance of this area. And we have always been reactive as opposed to proactive to date. We're here sitting in this room talking about something that should have been talked about in 1945, 1950. There's been several articles talking about if North Omaha could do the same as Benson and invest away. We can't do that anymore because we only have a 40% remaining population in this area that can contribute to this area. It's going to be very, very difficult to get this accomplished. There's a huge discussion now on Facebook about the gentrification, and we're having a hard time understanding what that term means and how it's going. But that action has already taken place. The cultural aspects of this area have been so misconstrued that it allows for anyone to come in and become part of it. And at this particular time, we as blacks who have any kind of wherewithal are trying to get out of here. Those who recognize the financial benefits of being in this particular corridor because it has been identified by the city council and by the city since the 1980s, that downtown will go from downtown all the way to Ames Street, 24th down to 16th. The Model Cities proposal of 1967 identifies, along with some of the things that are identified in the Long Screw Neighborhood Project, we've had about 15 different developmental plans in this area, and none of them have taken place. None of them. And there's a reason behind that. It ain't by happenstance. There's a reason why there hasn't been any development. There's a reason why, and that reason why is because downtown Omaha, along with Creighton, has got to move through this corridor in order for them to get done what they need to get done. And that supersedes anything that we, in a reactive context, and it wouldn't be for organizations like Omaha Economic Development Corporation, investing and developing and doing things with a lot of opposition, even from the folks here, and then with Empowerment Network coming in and identifying specific statistical information over the last 10 years that shows tremendous deficits in every area that we're talking about as applies to development, and nobody's responding to it. We've been talking in the wind for a long time, and we really need to look how seriously in the rear we are. Culture always is the mechanism of development because it shows the traditional worth. If you haven't maintained that worth, then it has no significance. It has no significance at all. And that's why this is very, very crucial, this particular meeting right here. The cultural significance of this unilaterally has to be absorbed by Hebraic Jews, and in Hebraic Jewish law, it states that if you make your money in an area, you pass that on to your offspring. If your offspring do not receive it in its proper context, then you return it to those who you made your money from.
Well, I couldn't agree more with your last statement. I find that to be one of the most frustrating things in Omaha is the fact that and to back up what you said, when I started working at the Arts Council, one of the things, my background is I'm a textile artist, and I heard about this woman having this textile exhibit over in the basement at the Livestock Exchange. So I'm curious. I went. I saw the possibilities. This woman had set up this exhibit. She had her mother and her 2 sisters there. Long story short, now she's running El Museo Latino. That was what it was. It was the beginning of that. But she saw the vision and she started in that basement. Now she's got an incredible building that's paid for. That's one of the most significant Latino art museums between here and Colorado. She, in fact, I had the pleasure of going to Mexico with her and actually met Frida Kahlo's people at Frida Kahlo's house, which was a surreal experience. And I'm saying that to say that we have these jewels and we have these treasures, but I go there and I watch this little place grow. And not only did I watch it grow, I watched the corridor grow. I watched that street become populated on one side, and I watched it become populated on the other side. When I first started meeting with her, we had a couple of places we could go. Now, I'm proud to say, but it also makes me angry. I haven't been to all the nice restaurants. When I say nice, I'm talking about family-based and family-focused restaurants in South Omaha. There are so many. And my frustration is I left the opening of the DeWitty exhibit. There were 5 of us down there Friday. And I left that opening, and I'm pumped up. I'm like, this is amazing. And I came out there and it was me.
Now, where's that?
That was at the Great Plains Black Museum in the Jewel Building. So I'm hungry. I'm like, shoot, I want some food. I want to get me a drink, and good shot of vodka. If just be around people, right? I had to get in my car and go to another neighborhood to get dinner.
So what time was this?
5:30.
5:30.
So are you saying that we don't have a restaurant in this area open after 5? Or?
I'm saying that we have to do things that engage the community. We have to engage. Arts are one way to engage the community. There are people that work very, very, very hard. I remember when Annette first started talking about the whole box concept. I remember those meetings, coming to the meetings, and and we all look at it and you don't know what it is, but you're like, okay, this sounds good, I'm willing. Saw it in New York. Saw people are living in these containers. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But I left out of there and I was feeling some kind of way that night. What I'm talking about are things that will engage this community. Our children deserve. When you look at standardized testing, where our children fall behind are things that have to do with arts and humanities. There's an assumption, racist or not, there's an assumption you know who Beethoven is. There's an assumption that you know this, we weren't taught that.
Still not.
I was taught it. Because Bev Blackburn made sure that I knew it. I was taught it because Mrs. Urey with the Afro Academy of Dramatic Arts made sure I knew it. I knew it because Helen Hayes, who taught poise classes, when I said her name, I sat straight up right here. When she taught poise classes at the YWCA on 28th in Miami, I knew it. So what I'm talking about are ways, how can we engage this community? And I'm saying that the arts and economic development go hand in hand. It can be done. We are organized maybe more than it seems, and one of the things that I've talked about too is the need for us to become transparent in what we're doing. Now, for many of you, the plan that I told you about, how many of you knew the details of that plan? See? Okay. Yeah. We need to pull that village, and we've had to change it. Lord knows it was work. It still is. It's a living, working document. But one of the things that I would like to see for us to do is for us to have some type of a forum on the arts. And I've talked to Willie about this. probably talked to all you guys and whoever else in this room. I've mentioned it to you, Elijah. Coco, we've talked about it, and whoever else I've worried about it, good. I want it to stay on your head, in your head. I think that we need to have a time to come together to talk about what we can do. We look at Native Omaha Days. Why can we not do things that engage and put that money back in our community right now? Can I get your cards? I wanna veer off into the conversation with that.
You can ask me in a minute.
Oh.